Today we're going to talk about a concept called speciesism. In its most basic form, speciesism refers to the belief that the human species is superior to other species of animals in a manner that leads to the exploitation of non-human animals. Okay, that's a lot, so let's start off with some basics. Why am I saying non-human animal instead of simply animal? Any biology textbook will be very clear with you that humans are, in fact, animals. However, when I say the word animal, what do you think of? Most people probably think of almost any species of animal other than humans. This is because as humans, we think of ourselves as somehow different from, more advanced, even better than other animals. We give ourselves lots of reasons for this. We believe we are smarter, form communities in better ways, are more introspective, and on and on and on. It turns out, in these regards, we aren't really that different from some other animals. But I'll get to that later. The point is, we have a sense of human exceptionalism, in which we think we are different and better than all other animals. This type of exceptionalism is the basis for all types of inequalities, or isms, we might say. It allows one group to internalize the idea that they are better than other groups based on some arbitrary characteristic. Having white skin, being straight, having a penis are all arbitrary characteristics that don't objectively make one person better than another. Even so, these characteristics become the basis of racism, homophobia, and sexism. So let's take sexism as an example. Some might argue males are physically stronger, but if you took the average male off the street, you would certainly be able to find a female somewhere who is stronger than him. Some say males are more prone to like certain types of jobs, like math or construction, but you can always find females who are competent in these fields. Some might say that males have a penis and can produce sperm and females can't. Well, that's true, but males who can't produce sperm or who don't have children stemming from that sperm still receive male privilege. More importantly, sperm in and of itself isn't an objective basis for conferring more privilege because without females as a counterpart to reproduction, sperm is meaningless. I can go on like this all day. The fact is, there really is no objective reason for sexism. Similarly, the idea that humans are better than other animals is not objectively true. It is just something we have been socialized from a very early age to believe is true. It is so ingrained in our culture that most people never even think to question it. Okay, so remember before when I said it is not true that humans have traits that make us better than other species of animals? Think about this for a few seconds. Do you agree with me? If you do, great, no need to do this next exercise. If not, I would like to give you a challenge. After you watch this, or if you just can't wait, feel free to pause the video and do this now. Brainstorm for a few minutes and come up with one good reason that humans are better than other animals. Now, of course, you can come up with ways that humans are different. We can come up with ways that any species is unique. Sailfish travel at an estimated speed near 70 miles an hour, making them the fastest fish in the world. But would you say that this would be a reason to justify their dominance over all other species of animals? Probably not. So now I want you to look back at your reason and tell me, can you say that this is a reason that justifies humans having more rights and consideration than all other species of animals? If you think so, then I want you to do a really deep research dive and try your hardest to find another species of animal that has this quality, and I bet that you can. For years, I've been doing this exercise with students, and for years they have thought of it all. Written language, culture, going to war with one's own species, using tools, abstract thought, morality, and more. They always find an example of some animal of some other species who has that quality as well. Further, it's almost always the case that there are some humans who do not have this trait, yet are still given the same species privilege as other humans. Go ahead and check out the description below this video here on YouTube for links to blog posts where I've consolidated some of my students' most interesting findings of this exercise. Okay, so how do we come to believe in this human exceptionalism so much so that it's hard to even question it? To answer that, let's take a break from speciesism so I can introduce you to yet another concept with a fancy name: social construction. Social construction is the idea that the things we think of as being facts or true in a culture are only true because we as a society have agreed that they're true. Money is a basic example of how this works. A dollar bill really has no value. It's just paper printed with a design. However, because our society deems it to have value, it then becomes something we can trade. Before the advent of debit cards, the idea that you could trade money without physically exchanging it would have seemed absurd. But over time, the idea of such transactions came to be accepted and trusted, and now they are the norm. Debit cards have become socially constructed as money. As social constructs become accepted, they become normalized and institutionalized within a society, so that it becomes very difficult to see that they are not in fact real, but rather social constructs. Social constructs are not bad, they're necessary for organizing society. For example, language. The symbols and sounds we use to represent words and ideas are socially constructed. Here is a picture. Here are a bunch of symbols that make up the English alphabet. As a society, we agree the sound or word that describes this picture is deer. We agree that we can use a certain combination of these symbols or letters in this pattern to spell the word deer. Of course, language is socially constructed in a completely different way in Japan, such that different sounds and patterns of symbols represent this picture. Though social constructs can be neutral or even useful, like language, they can also be harmful. Let's return to our example of sexism. How is it that we come to believe males and females are so different? One of the key ways is through the social construction of gender. As children, even before birth, we begin assigning gender categories based on biological sex. Boys get lots of trucks and trains and active play. Girls get lots of dolls, imaginary play sets, and role-playing time. Research finds that baby boys are even talked to with different language than baby girls in the womb. We dress baby boys and baby girls differently so that from the very beginning they are labeled. We teach gender, and so many activities that come to be seen as male or female are often a reflection of that upbringing. As we come to treat male and female children differently, they begin to do different things and have different interests. This eventually leads to things we see in their adulthood, like having different jobs. Further, these different activities and interests come to be rewarded differently, and these different systems of reward become the basis for inequality. For example, the activities that are seen as female, such as family care, often go unrewarded both financially and emotionally. These differences over time become so normal, they begin to be seen as natural and eventually become institutionalized. What do I mean by they becoming institutionalized? Well, the idea that the work males do is more important is reflected in many ways. Just one of these ways is pay. Jobs that tend to have more males tend to pay more. You could argue that taking care of someone's child while they're not available is perhaps one of the most important jobs a person can have. I know that I care much more about who's with my child all day than who does my taxes. Both tasks I could do myself, but I don't because I don't have the time. However, teachers, who tend to be women, get paid less than accountants, who tend to be men. This pay differential has become so institutionalized that now, even within the same job, women make less than men, such that as of 2018, for every dollar a man makes, women make only 85 cents. So why am I telling you all this? The way we classify animals, including humans, is socially constructed in the same way as well. We decide what categories matter and classify animals according to them. The current system of classification used in biology is called a taxonomy, in which animals are classified by their biological features. Inherently, this taxonomy is not a problem. It is just a way to categorize as much as language is. As I noted earlier, social construction isn't necessarily a problem. It becomes a problem when it is used as a basis of inequality. In this regard, there are other socially constructed ways that we classify animals that have become the foundation for speciesism. That's right, we're back to speciesism. Finally. Okay, so the first classification is the human-animal classification that we already discussed. We classify humans as very distinct from all other animals. I know that this boundary seems sound and biological, but history shows us that the boundary between human and non-human animal has actually changed over time, often to justify poor treatment of other animals. For example, as late as the early 1900s, racism in the United States was defended with arguments that people of African descent were less than human. Here's a picture of Oda Benga, who was held in a cage and on display at the Bronx Zoo in 1906. That's right, 1906. Today, I hope that would never happen. But this highlights that this line between human and non-human is socially constructed, and it is used to justify the oppression of those unlucky enough to be considered non-human. We use neat little tools to keep speciesism in place. One tool we use is language, using what Carol Adams calls mass terms. This phrase refers to the lumping together of many individuals into one large group. This allows us to erase the idea that those in the group have individuality, and it establishes an inaccurate sense that all members of a group are one and the same. One way to think of it is as an extreme stereotype or profiling. As Carol Adams explains in her article titled A War on Compassion, quote, mass terms refer to things like water or color. No matter how much of it there is or what type of container it is in, water is still water. Objects referred to by mass terms have no individuality, no uniqueness, no specificity, no particularity. End quote. This is a problem because humans make unique individuals, someone, into just part of a group, something, by using mass terms. The way this works in regard to animals is through the identification of types or groups of animals, such that any individual animal stands in for the whole group. For example, by making someone a farm animal, we classify her as a type of animal that can be killed for food. Further, we often identify animals by species as if all in that species are exactly the same. This allows for us to abuse animals en masse for our own human desire. For example, we don't eat a chicken for dinner, we eat chicken. We don't eat a cow for dinner or a piece of a cow, we eat beef. We lump all individuals into the group. We socially construct these groups and how we will treat members of these groups. For example, animals we construct as companion animals are treated better than those we construct as farm animals. But is there really any reason for this? Not really, and you can see this by looking at species that are treated differently depending on what socially constructed category they're in. Is there any reason why a person is expected to take good care of their pet rabbit by taking them to the vet, making sure that they're well cared for? Is there any reason why that person might face animal cruelty charges for blinding that pet rabbit? After all, it is completely acceptable for another rabbit who is bred for research to be warehoused in a cage, never taken to the vet, never have a comfortable place to sleep, and be blinded during use in experiments to test cosmetics. The only difference in how it's acceptable to treat each of these rabbits is our social construction of the category that each rabbit falls into. Another tool we use to keep species in place is willful ignorance. We don't question our assumptions about other animals. For example, why do we eat pigs but we don't eat dogs? Most pigs do better on human tests of intelligence than most dogs. Pigs are just as capable of forming close bonds with humans. Pigs even enjoy belly rubs. So why is it okay to eat pigs? And speaking of eating animals, why do we get upset about it when other cultures eat dogs or horses if we're busy eating animals that other cultures value, like cows? Why don't we just eat insects or giraffe meat? They're chock full of protein. You'll often find the answers to these things don't come down to anything truly logical or real per se. They usually can be explained by what processes allow companies to make profits, what our socialized beliefs are about the capacity of other animals, no matter whether those beliefs are true or not, and simply because people do what our parents taught us to do growing up, and accepting the norms of our social networks and culture is the most basic thing that we typically do. Our society is fundamentally speciesist. Now, maybe this doesn't bother you, or maybe you need more time to think about it, but it is happening. I would like to challenge you this week. Each day for the next week, think of one thing you currently do or have done in the past that is speciesist. Write it down. Then think about why you do it and whether there's a good justification for it. Are you comfortable with this behavior? Why or why not? Is this behavior something you have to do? Are there alternatives to this behavior? Speciesism is the norm in our society. So it will take a lot of critical thinking to work through these things. But every single one of you will realize that you are in some way or in many ways speciesist. Some of you will decide that you're completely comfortable with that, and some of you will decide that it is simply not fair. So my challenge to you is to try to uncover the speciesism in your life and decide, where do you stand? After all, you can't know where you stand if you don't take the time to identify the speciesism and to think about it. So let's return to that definition again and see if you understand it any better this time. Speciesism is the belief that the human species is superior to other species of animals in a manner that leads to the exploitation of non-human animals.